Please be seated. My suspicion is that something like this has happened to you before. It's Wednesday night, you're bored, so you decide to try out a new dessert recipe. After a few hours, the dessert doesn't turn out well. It turns out really well. In fact, it's probably the best tiramisu that you've ever had in your life. And you think to yourself, I should make this next weekend when Sally and Joe come over. So you do. And as dessert time rolls around, you pull the tiramisu out of the refrigerator. But this time something went terribly wrong. It's a soupy mess. They're good friends, so you serve it anyway with the hope that it at least tastes good. Everyone chuckles as you place this slop in front of them, and the laughs continue for the rest of the evening. The laughs continue because it was never really about serving the perfect dessert. It was about being together. This morning we hear the story of the Magi, the people from the east who studied the stars and noticed that a new one had appeared. And unless you were really not paying attention in Magi school, you know that this could only mean one thing: a ruler has been born. So they got out their Magi maps and calculated that this new star was just over Judea. And off they went to see this child, this newborn king. They headed to the capital city of Jerusalem, perhaps assuming it would be there that they would see the Savior of the world swaddled in fine linens. They arrive at Herod's opulent palace, press through the band of guards, walk through the hallways packed with silver and gold statues and sculptures adorned with fine jewels, and they finally got to Herod, adorned in a regal purple robe, and asked him, "Where is this king of the Jews?" Seeing their 3 treasure chests and excited about what gifts might be in there for him, Herod replied, "Well, right here, of course." "No," they replied, "the one who has just been born." A bad thing to say to a paranoid ruler. So Herod summoned the chief priests and the scribes together to ask them where, hypothetically of course, if there were to be a new king, in which town would he be born? Bethlehem seemed to be the answer. So again, off the Magi went until that guiding star stopped. This time not over an opulent palace packed with precious metals and rare stones, not over a palace tightly monitored by a band of guards, not over a palace where inside a royal family draped in violet robes would reside, but against all odds, it stopped over a simple home, one where you could walk right in and see a simple lady of the countryside looking adoringly at her newborn child, wrapped in mismatched scraps from any bands of cloth she could find. What we hear somewhat inexplicably is that at that moment when the Magi arrived, that they were overwhelmed with joy, laughing, you might even say. Because in Magi school, one learned that kings are not born in luxurious palaces, but they were just served one soupy mess of a newborn king. Nothing was the way it was supposed to be. No gold, no bands of soldiers, just divine simplicity. being wise people, I wonder if they stopped for a moment to think what it all meant. This newborn king didn't want the luxury of a palace because palaces have guards. This newborn king didn't want a family of royalty because royal families are to be distant and to be kept away from the public. This newborn king over whom that bright new star stopped wanted heaven to meet earth and earth to meet heaven. This newborn king wanted to be with us, be like us, be among us. Emmanuel. A king, a God, completely accessible to those magi, to you, to me, an anointed child to whom you could walk right up and bask in that divine light and life. That is what overwhelmed them with joy. It was never about grand palaces and lavish trappings. It was about being radically close to God, God and sinner reconciled. And so with their hearts beaming with joy, a joy brighter than any star in the sky, even that new one, they did the only thing one can do when one realizes God did all this to be among us, to be with you, to be with me. The Magi fell on their knees and paid him homage, an ancient way of showing allegiance, as if to say, today I will follow you. Today you are my king. Now, in Magi School, they also teach you how to give pretty good gifts. So 3 chests they brought forward to their new Lord. One with gold for his crown that he would never get in this world. The frankincense, which takes our earthly prayers and soars them aloft to heaven, reminding us of the perpetual unity of heaven and earth and heaven, which this child afforded to us. And myrrh, that bitter perfume used to anoint the priests of old, the very oil used to anoint the dead. They gave this knowing this child would be not just priest, but accepted by God as perfect sacrifice too. He did this all so that nothing would ever stand in the way between us and God's love. All this happening as that new star shined above them, as a new day dawned in their hearts. After that encounter with love divine, they knew nothing would ever be the same again. So they left for their own country, this time by another road. Is this not our Epiphany story too? That in those blissfully imperfect moments of our lives, by the power of some mysterious grace, we are even more poignantly able to feel that divine presence, that presence that stills our hearts as we realize God is with us. That is God's Epiphany gift to us, to be with us always. And after we truly come to believe that, after we have that divine epiphany, how could we ever travel the same roads again, knowing that it is the hope to which he has called you, the riches of that glorious inheritance, and that immeasurable greatness of his power for those who believe.